Tom never imagined his name would be known across galaxies. He was not a hero, a soldier, or a famous leader. He was just a quiet engineer from Earth. He liked to fix things: broken satellites, damaged ship engines, and sometimes old coffee machines. But life had its own plans. When Tom was selected to join the Unity delegation, a group of humans visiting the powerful alien race called the Zorith, he was nervous but proud. Earth had just started peaceful talks with the Zorith Alliance, and Tom was chosen for his strong work and calm attitude. All he had to do was stay on their space station, repair some tech, and smile at important meetings. Easy, he thought. But things changed on the 5th day. It was the Festival of Harmony, a Zorith event held every 5 years. The Grand Hall was full of glowing banners, floating lights, and sweet-smelling air. Zorith musicians played soft music on crystal instruments. Alien guests from many worlds attended the event. The human delegation, including Tom, stood politely on one side. At the center of the hall stood Consul, the tall and wise leader of the Zorith. His silver robe flowed behind him, and his 4 golden eyes looked over the crowd with calm power. Standing beside him were 2 young Zorith women, his granddaughters. One wore a white robe and stood still, quiet and graceful. The other wore bright colors, held a small translator device, and smiled like she was ready for an adventure. Tom didn't think much about them until the Consul raised his hand and spoke. "In the name of peace and unity, I offer a bond between our races, a marriage between my bloodline and the humans. I have chosen ... Tom of Earth." The hall fell silent. Tom blinked. "Wait, what?" he whispered, looking around. People stared at him. Even his AI assistant, Joan, paused for a second before speaking in his earpiece. "That was not in the official plan, Tom." Tom slowly stepped forward, confused and nervous. "Sir, I think there's been a mistake." "But Consul," Duroc smiled, "you are brave and honest. We watched you solve problems, help others, and treat every species with respect. That is why I choose you to marry one of my granddaughters." Tom looked at the 2 girls. The quiet one gave him a respectful nod. The other winked. He turned to the Consul. "I'm very honored." "Really? But Earth didn't say anything about marriage." The Consul answered, "Your leaders accepted all cultural traditions in our agreement. You were chosen fairly. But you may spend time with each granddaughter before deciding. 1 week, that is the way of Zorith courtship." Joan whispered, "Technically, he's right. It's in the small print of page 96, Cultural Respect Clause." Tom closed his eyes for a second. He had read all the pages, except 96. The Consul continued, "This is a sign of trust. A peaceful union between our people. We ask you to consider it with an open heart." Tom was not a rude man. He knew Earth needed this alliance. The Zorith had powerful ships, knowledge of wormhole travel, and energy tech Earth couldn't dream of. A broken treaty could put Earth in danger from enemies in deep space. Refusing the Consul's offer might damage everything. He nodded slowly. "I will consider it, but I ask for time." Consul Duroc smiled again. 1 week, Tom. You will meet both Luma and Rena. After that, the choice is yours." The next morning, Tom was assigned a guide and living quarters inside the Crystal Dome, the private area of the Consul's family. It was beautiful walls that glowed soft blue, floors that changed patterns with each step, and large windows showing stars spinning in space. Joan, the AI, kept scanning for updates. "There is no threat so far, Tom, but I suggest you stay. Alert! Alien marriages have been known to include ... challenges." Tom sighed. "What kind of challenges?" "Combat, dance battles, poetry." Tom shook his head. "Great." His first meeting was with Luma, the elder granddaughter. She greeted him with a formal bow. "Welcome, Tom of Earth," she said softly. "This is my garden. I come here to think and breathe." Tom looked around. The garden was full of floating Plants, small glowing fish swimming in the air, and silent wind chimes that moved without sound. "It's peaceful," Tom said. Luma smiled gently. "Peace is rare. It must be protected." They walked for a while, speaking of traditions, duty, and the future of the Alliance. Luma was kind and wise, but Tom felt like she was always thinking carefully about every word. Later, he met Rena. She was different. She dragged him into a room filled with odd things: human clothes, pictures of Earth animals, music discs, and even a skateboard. "I've been studying Earth," Rena said with excitement. "I love your music and your food." "What's a pickle sandwich? Can we try it?" Tom laughed. "It's not the best example of our culture." She grinned. "Even better. Let's make one." Rena didn't care about rules or quiet walks. She was energy and color. She asked 100 questions and tried to race Tom in the hallway. Joan whispered, "This one may be unstable." But Tom smiled. "She's fun." That night, Tom lay in bed, looking at the stars outside his window. He had come here to fix machines, not to be part of a space wedding. Yet now, he was the center of an ancient custom. Two very different girls. One calm like a still pond, the other like a dancing flame. He didn't know what the right choice was, but he had 7 days to find out. Tom had seen many strange things since he arrived on the Zorth space station: floating gardens, singing water, and food that changed color while you ate it. But nothing confused him more than the 2 granddaughters of Consul, Luma and Rena, sisters, twins, yet as different as night and day. His first full day with Luma was quiet, calm, and full of rules. She arrived at his door dressed in silver, her long robe brushing the floor like waves. She held a small stone in her hand that glowed softly, something she called a peace gem. "I thought we could begin with morning meditation," she said. Tom raised an eyebrow. "Is that like yoga?" Luma tilted her head. "Yoga? Never mind," Tom said with a smile. "Let's try it." They sat in a room filled with light and silence. Luma taught him how to breathe slowly and feel the energy of the station. She spoke softly about Zorth history, their long wars, and how peace had changed everything. "We used to fight each other," she said, "but now we use thought, balance, and diplomacy. That's why this marriage is important." Tom nodded, trying to stay still. "And you believe in this marriage idea?" Luma was quiet for a moment. "I believe in peace. If marriage helps bring peace, then I accept it." Her words were kind, but they felt like duty, like someone reading from a rule book. She was respectful, wise, and calm, but Tom couldn't tell what she really felt. Later that afternoon, Rena showed up at his door. She didn't knock. She kicked the door open and shouted, "Tom, let's go steal a glider." Tom jumped up. "Wait, what?" Rena laughed. "Just kidding." "Sort of. Come on." Before he could reply, she grabbed his hand and pulled him down the hallway. She wore a strange mix of clothes, half traditional Zorth robes, half human jacket, and shoes with flashing lights. "Where are we going?" Tom asked. "You'll see." 10 minutes later, they stood on top of the wind spire, a tall tower near the top of the station. Below them, floating platforms moved in slow circles across a windy sky garden. "I borrowed these," Rena said, handing Tom a small board with handles. "Is this safe?" he asked. "Probably not," she said with a grin. "That's why it's fun." Before he could protest, Rena jumped onto her glider and soared off the edge of the tower. Wind caught her board and lifted her up, sending her spinning through the air. Tom sighed. "Joan, this is a bad idea, isn't it?" The AI answered, "Yes, very." Tom jumped anyway. The wind caught his glider, and suddenly he was flying through the sky, chasing Rena across floating platforms. She laughed and did flips. Tom tried to follow but barely stayed balanced. They flew past a group of surprised alien visitors, circled a tower, and finally landed on a wide platform filled with glowing plants. "That," Tom said, gasping for breath, "was insane." "That," Rena replied, "was amazing." They sat down, legs dangling over the edge. "So," Rena said, looking at the stars, "are you going to marry one of us?" Tom looked at her. "I don't know yet." Rena didn't seem upset. She just nodded. "Good, you shouldn't decide. So fast, people always expect things from us. But I like when people think for themselves." Tom smiled. "You're very different from your sister." "I know," Rena said. "She's the favorite. The perfect one. The one who follows all the rules. And you?" "I follow the fun." The next day, Consul Dyrox invited Tom to the Chamber of Union, a glowing hall where marriage bonds were made. "Not for a wedding, but for an explanation. You must understand," the consul said. Luma and Rena were both trained to lead. "One with wisdom, one with heart. I do not wish to force love. I only wish to give choice." Tom asked, "Do they even want this marriage?" Consul Dyrox gave a strange smile. "That is what you must discover." Later that day, Tom met with both sisters at the same time. He expected a quiet talk. Instead, Rena challenged Luma to a duello. Game a traditional Zoroth competition using movement and energy blasts. It was like dancing and fencing mixed together. Tom watched in shock as the two girls battled across the glowing floor, their hands leaving streaks of light. Luma moved with control and grace. Rena moved like lightning, fast and wild. When it ended in a draw, both sisters turned to Tom and said together, "Your turn." "I can't do that," Tom said, stepping back. Rena threw him a training disc. "Then we'll teach you." That night, Tom lay in bed again, his arms sore from training. Joan spoke quietly. "You are bonding with both of them. Do you believe one is a better match?" Tom closed his eyes. "They're both amazing, but they're not just choices. They're people. I can't pick one like choosing between red or blue." Joan answered, "Then perhaps it is not about choosing one. Perhaps it is about finding truth." Tom didn't reply. He just stared at the stars. One was fire, one was ice. But he was just human. Tom woke up early. A soft bell rang through the crystal dome, followed by the voice of Joan, his AI assistant. "Good morning, Tom. Today is your trial day." Tom groaned and sat up. "I was hoping that was a dream." "I'm afraid not," Joan replied. "According to Zoroth tradition, any suitor of royal blood must pass the 3 trials of union. Only then may he choose or be chosen." Tom pulled on his boots and rubbed his eyes. Of course, because talking like normal people would be too easy. The trials were designed to test strength, emotion, and courage. Most Zoroth who took them trained for years. Tom had been here for 5 days. Still, he had no choice. Backing out would bring dishonor to Earth and possibly break the peace agreement. He followed his guide to the Chamber of Paths, where the Zoroth Council waited. The tall doors opened with a soft hum. Inside stood Consul Dyrox, Luma, Rena, and a group of alien elders. Consul Dyrox spoke. "Tom of Earth, do you accept the challenge of the 3 trials?" Tom took a breath. "Yes." Trial 1. The Mirror of Truth. Tom was led into a dark room. At the center stood a tall black mirror that reflected not his face, but memories from his life. "The mirror shows your past," said Luma gently. "You must face the moment that shaped your heart." Tom stepped forward. The mirror shimmered. Suddenly, he was back on Earth, inside a burning spaceport. Smoke filled the air. A ship had exploded during testing. People were screaming. Tom saw himself running toward a control panel. A fellow engineer, Ravi, was trapped under a beam. Others told Tom to escape, but he had refused. Tom had gone back, lifted the beam, and dragged Ravi out just before the second explosion. The mirror replayed the moment in slow motion. The fear, the pain, the choice. Tom's chest tightened. He looked down. "I wasn't a hero," he said softly. "I was just scared someone would die because I did nothing." The mirror went silent. Then it turned clear. "You passed," said Luma. "You were honest with yourself. That is strength." Trial 2. The Maze of Winds. The second trial was not. Peaceful. Tom stood at the edge of a floating maze, hundreds of stone platforms, drifting in midair, high above the station's inner storm chamber. Wind howled across the space, and the platforms moved with every gust. "You must reach the center before the wind grows too strong," said Rena, handing him a rope belt. "And try not to fall." "Thanks for the tip," Tom muttered. The moment he stepped onto the first platform, it shifted. He nearly slipped but caught his balance. Joan's voice whispered in his ear, "Your best option is to move fast, don't hesitate." Tom jumped to the next platform, then another. Wind pushed at him from all sides. He crouched low, moving carefully. Suddenly, a blast of air knocked him down. The platform rocked. He held tight to a hook on his belt. He looked up. The center of the maze was still far away. He could turn back, but he remembered something Rena had said. Sometimes you don't win by being strong. You win by not giving up. Tom pushed forward. It took nearly 30 minutes, but he finally reached the center, breathless and shaking. Waiting for him was Rena, clapping. "Not bad for a human," Tom grinned. "You didn't tell me the platforms move like angry jellyfish. Where's the fun in warnings?" Trial 3. The Choice of Flame. The final trial was simple. At least on the surface. Tom entered a quiet chamber filled with heat. In the center was a tall crystal flame that burned with bright golden light. Floating above it was a bond stone, a glowing piece of living energy. Consul stood nearby. "In our history," he said, "the flame was used to test one's heart. If you fear the bond, the stone burns. If you are ready, the stone welcomes you." Tom stepped forward. His palms were sweaty. His heart beat faster. This wasn't just about passing the trial. This was about something deeper. He looked at the stone. What was he afraid of? Not the heat. Not the test. Not even the idea of marrying someone from another species. He was afraid of hurting them, Luma or Rena. He was afraid of making the wrong choice and breaking something that couldn't be fixed. He closed his eyes. Then, slowly he reached out. Stone floated into his palm. Warm, gentle, alive. It didn't burn. The room filled with soft light. "You have passed," said the consul. "Your heart is open, even in fear." After the trials, Tom sat in the quiet garden where he had first met Luma. His clothes were dusty, and he had small cuts on his hands. But he felt calm. Luma came and sat beside him. "You did well." "I barely survived the wind maze," he said with a smile. "You showed balance. That's rare." Rena arrived next, holding 2 bottles of fizzing alien juice. "I brought victory drinks," she said, tossing one to Tom. They sat together in silence for a while, watching the stars turn above. Then Luma asked softly, "Tom, after the trials, what do you feel?" Tom looked at both sisters. "I feel honored, I feel grateful, and I feel unsure." Rena laughed. "Good. That means your brain is working." Luma smiled gently. "There's still time." That night, Tom walked back to his quarters. Joan floated beside him in a small light orb. "You passed all 3 trials," she said. "You are now qualified by Zorith law to choose your partner." Tom stopped walking. "But what if I don't choose?" Joan paused. "Then the choice may be made for you. Or the alliance may take a different path. There is no clear answer." Tom looked out the window at the stars. The morning after the trials, Tom expected peace. He thought maybe the hardest part was over. He had faced his fears, passed the challenges, and earned the respect of the Zorith Council. But peace didn't come. Instead, trouble began quietly. It started with a simple breakfast. Tom sat in the crystal dome dining area. eating soft blue fruit and sipping something warm and sweet. Luma joined him, reading from a glowing scroll. Rena arrived a few minutes later, holding a basket of strange snacks she had found in the trade market. Then Joan's voice came into Tom's earpiece. Warning, trace amounts of unstable energy detected in your food. Tom froze. What kind of energy? Likely from tampering. It is not natural. Possible sabotage. Tom pushed the plate away and whispered to Luma and Rena. Their faces turned serious. A guard came and took the food for testing. Hours later, a report confirmed it. Someone had placed a small energy disruptor inside the meal. It would have made Tom sick, not deadly, but serious enough to keep him from public duties for days. Someone wants me out of the way, Tom said quietly. But who? Asked Rena. The trials are over. You passed. Luma nodded. Not everyone in the council supports the Union. Some believe Earth is too young, too weak. They fear change. Tom looked at both sisters. What if this isn't about the marriage? What if it's about breaking the alliance? That afternoon, Tom and Joan began checking his quarters for more problems. Behind a wall panel, Joan discovered a tiny device, barely the size of a coin. Surveillance drone, she said. Very advanced, Zorith tech, but not standard. Tom stared at the small object. Someone spying on me. Later. That day, he met with Consul Dyrox in private. I need to know the truth, Tom said firmly. Is there a group working against the peace agreement? The consul looked tired. You are wise to ask. Yes, there are those who fear this alliance. They think humanity will bring conflict or steal our knowledge. Do you know who they are? Not yet, Dyrox said, but you must be careful. The closer we come to unity, the more shadows will try to stop it. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He stood by the window, watching the stars. He didn't feel like a guest anymore. He felt like a target. Suddenly, Joan whispered, Alert! Movement outside your door. Tom stepped back as the door slid open. But it wasn't a guard. It was Rena, panting, with her jacket torn and dust on her face. Come with me, she said quickly. Tom didn't ask questions. He followed her through a side corridor, down a narrow stairway that led to the lower levels of the station. What's going on? He asked. I found something, Rena said. But we have to move fast. They reached a storage room filled with unused tech and old power units. Behind a tall crate, Rena showed him a blinking panel. I was exploring again. Don't tell Grandpa, and I found this by accident. It's a signal booster, sending messages out of the station. Unauthorized. Tom looked at the panel. The design was advanced. Someone had placed it here to contact someone outside secretly. Joan scanned the signal. Encrypted. High level, possibly military. Which means someone is working from inside, Tom said. And they have help from the outside. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Then footsteps echoed in the hall. Hide, Rena whispered. They ducked behind crates just before the door opened. A tall figure stepped inside, looking around carefully. He wore a Zorith officer's cloak. Tom recognized him. Commander Brack, a known war hero, and one of the strongest voices against Earth in the Council. Brack examined the signal panel, then tapped a small device on his wrist. He muttered something and walked out. Rena turned to Tom. That's it. He's the one. He's trying to break the treaty. Tom stood. We have proof now, but we need to act fast. The next day, Tom asked to speak in front of the council. Chamber was full. Zorith leaders, human diplomats, and guests from other allied planets had gathered. Everyone expected Tom to speak about his trial results, or perhaps announce his marriage choice. Instead, he stepped forward and said clearly, There is a threat inside this station. The room fell silent. Tom continued. Someone is trying to stop the peace between Earth and Zorith. I have evidence of sabotage, of spying. and secret signals being sent to enemies outside. Gasps filled the room. Brock stood suddenly. These are lies. Earth is full of fear. They spread panic and pretend to be victims. Tom didn't shout. He simply played the recording Joan had saved. Brock's voice, captured during the signal message. You said humans are weak, Tom said. But it takes strength to face danger. And still choose peace. Consul Dirac stood and raised his hand. The Council will investigate. For now, Commander Brock is to be held for questioning. Guards stepped forward. Brock didn't resist, but his eyes burned with anger. You may have stopped me, he said to Tom, but others will rise. This peace will not last. Tom replied, maybe not. But we'll fight for it, with words, with truth. That evening, the station returned to calm. Lights glowed brighter, and the energy felt different lighter. Tom walked through the garden with Luma and Rena. You could have stayed silent, Luma said. Many would have. But that's not how peace is made, Tom replied. You don't protect unity by ignoring danger. You protect it by facing it together, Rena nodded. You've changed a lot since you got here, Tom laughed. You think so? Before, you were just the human who didn't want to get married, she teased. And now? Now you're the human who might just save the galaxy. But deep inside the station, far from the gardens and lights, a small device blinked in the dark. A message had been sent before Brock was caught. A message that reached someone in deep space. The Sky Garden was quiet as Tom sat on the edge of a glowing platform, looking at the stars. After everything that had happened, the trials, the sabotage, and Brock's arrest, he still felt uncertain. The station had returned to peace on the Mai. Outside, but inside, Tom's heart was full of questions. Who else was involved with Brock? Would the Alliance survive? And what about Luma and Rena? Did either of them truly want to marry him, or were they simply following orders? Before he could think further, a message appeared on his wristband. Come to the high tower, alone. Dirac's Joan spoke quietly. This request seems private. No threats detected, but I suggest caution. Tom stood up. Let's find out what he wants. The high tower stood above the rest of the station, shaped like a crystal needle. It was where Consul Dirac met with leaders from across the galaxy. Tom had never been inside before. Two guards opened the large doors. Inside, it was silent. Dirac stood near a wide window, his back to the room. Tom walked in slowly. You asked for me? Dirac nodded. Yes, it is time we speak openly, without counsel, without custom. He turned to face Tom. His golden eyes were calm, but behind them was something heavier. A burden. You have done much, the Consul said. You passed the trials. You uncovered betrayal. And yet, you asked nothing for yourself. Tom shrugged. I didn't come here for rewards. No, you came for peace, Dirac said softly. But there is something you must understand. Something I have not told even my granddaughters. Tom felt his chest tighten. What is it? The Consul walked toward a glowing table and placed his hand on it. A hologram rose in the air, an old image of a young Zorith warrior beside a human soldier. That human, Dirac said, was your grandfather. Tom's eyes widened. What? Decades ago, before the Alliance was formed, there was a hidden war. A battle in deep space between old Zorith tribes and a group of human explorers. Your grandfather James saved me from an attack. He could have left, but he stayed and fought beside me. Tom stepped closer. I didn't know any of this. You weren't meant to, Dirac said. But after the war, I promised him something, that I would do everything in my power to unite our people, and that one day, if the chance came, I would bind our families together. Not just for honor, for hope. Tom was silent for a long time. So? This marriage proposal, it was planned all along. Not forced, Dirac said. I would never make my granddaughters marry someone they don't choose. But the idea, the possibility, it was a dream I carried for many years. And when I saw your name on the delegation list, I knew the time had come. Tom sat down, trying to understand. His grandfather had fought in a secret war, had saved the leader of the Zorith, and now Tom stood at the center of a promise made long ago. I wish I'd known him. Tom said quietly. He would be proud, Dyrok said. You walk the same path. You bring peace in places where others bring fear. Tom looked up. But what about Luma and Rena? Do they know this history? Dyrok shook his head. Not yet. I wanted them to choose freely, not because of old promises. Tom stood. Then maybe it's time they knew. Later that evening, Tom met Luma and Rena in the Crystal Garden. The stars above spun slowly, and soft lights moved between the trees. I need to tell you something, Tom began. He told them everything: the war, the promise, the truth about his grandfather and Dyrok's. He watched their faces carefully. Luma listened quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Rena leaned forward, eyes wide. So this whole marriage idea wasn't just politics, Rena said. It was personal. Tom nodded. Your grandfather wanted to unite the families, but he never forced it. Luma looked at Tom. And you? What do you want? Tom paused. I want what's real. Not just duty. Not just promises from the past. I want to know what you both feel. Rena stood and stretched. Honestly, I still don't want to marry anyone. I want to explore the galaxy, learn to fly human ships, maybe eat 1,000 weird snacks. Tom smiled. That sounds like a great plan. Luma stood slowly. And I don't know either. I've always followed the path given to me. But maybe it's time I choose my own. They stood in silence for a moment, the air filled with light and the hum of soft music in the distance. Tom spoke again. If none of us want this for the wrong reasons, then maybe we've already succeeded. We've become friends. We've built trust. Isn't that more powerful than a forced bond? Luma nodded. Yes, it is. Rena punched Tom gently on the arm. You're not so bad, human. That night, Consul Dyrok sat alone in the high tower, watching the stars. Tom entered quietly. I spoke to them, Dyrok's turned. And? They don't want marriage. Not now. Not like this. The consul closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and smiled. Then I will change the law. Tom blinked. What? Dyrok stood tall. For too long, our traditions have been too heavy. They were made for peace, but now they stop growth. If my granddaughters wish to choose their own path, then I will let them. Tom felt a wave of relief. Thank you. Durox looked out the window. Peace is not born from pressure. It is born from freedom. Then he turned back. There is still one thing I ask of you. Tom raised an eyebrow. What is it? I want you to become Earth's voice in the Zorith Alliance. Not as a husband, as an ambassador, Tom smiled. Now that I can do. Far across the galaxy, a dark ship drifted in silence. Inside, a message blinked on a console. It was the signal Commander Brack had sent before his arrest. A deep voice spoke from the shadows. So, the humans think they've won. Another voice replied, let them believe it. For now. The grand chamber of the Zorith Council glowed brighter than ever before. It was the day of declaration, a tradition followed for hundreds of years. On this day, the chosen suitor of a royal family would make the final decision, either to accept the bond or step away with respect. This time, all eyes were on Tom of Earth. The council seats were full. Ambassadors from over 20 planets had come to witness the moment. Crystal lights floated across the ceiling like stars, and soft music echoed around the room. In the center stood 3 chairs, one for Tom, and one each for Luma and Rena. Tom wore a clean formal suit with a Zorith energy sash across his shoulder. He looked calm, but inside, his heart beat fast. Joan, his AI assistant, floated quietly by his side. "Do you feel prepared, Tom?" she asked in a soft voice. "No," Tom said with a nervous smile. "But I feel honest." The great gong sounded. Consul Dyrok stepped forward to begin the ceremony. "Today, we celebrate not just a tradition, but a turning point. A bond between worlds, shaped by truth, not pressure. Tom of Earth, you have passed all trials. Now you must make your final choice." Tom stood. The room grew silent. He looked at the council, then at the two sisters standing nearby. He took a deep breath. Tom walked slowly to the center of the platform. "I want to speak from the heart," he began. "When I came here, I was just an engineer. I was supposed to fix machines, not meet royalty. And I definitely didn't expect to be told I must marry someone I never met." Soft chuckles moved through the crowd. "But in these last days, I've learned more than I ever imagined. I faced your trials. I saw the strength of your people. I uncovered dangers and stood against betrayal. But the greatest lessons came from two people, Luma and Rena." He turned to look at them. "Luma, you taught me the power of calm, of thinking before acting. You carry your people's wisdom with pride. You never let fear control you." Luma smiled gently, her hands folded. "Rena," Tom continued, "you showed me the joy of freedom. You question everything, you laugh at rules, but you care deeply more. Then you remind me to live, not just to think." Rena grinned and gave a small salute. Tom turned back to the council. "I came here thinking I had no choice, but now I see I do. And so do they. I will not choose either of them, not because they are not worthy, but because I respect them too much to make them a symbol." The chamber went silent. "I believe," Tom said, raising his voice slightly, "that peace is not made by marriage, but by friendship, by trust, and we already have that." He turned to Consul Dyrox. "I ask that the marriage be called off. And instead, let us begin a new bond of partnership between Earth and Zoreth, built on shared goals, not old promises." The silence was heavy. Some council members whispered. Others watched with wide eyes. Consul Dyrox stepped forward. "You speak with great respect, Tom of Earth, but this tradition is sacred. If we end it now, others may see it as weakness." Tom nodded. "Or maybe they'll see it as growth." Suddenly, Luma stepped forward. "I agree with Tom," she said calmly. "This choice should never be forced. I am proud to call him a friend, and I will help lead this alliance not as his wife, but as his equal." Then Rena stepped beside her sister. "I also agree. I want to travel, to explore, and learn from the humans, not be tied down by rules written before I was born." Gasps rose from the crowd. Tom looked at the consul. "They've spoken. So have I. Is that enough?" Dyrox looked at his granddaughters with deep eyes. Then, slowly, he smiled. "It is more than enough." He raised his hand. "I declare that the old law of marriage for alliance is now ended. From this day forward, unity will be chosen by heart, not by law." The chamber exploded in applause. Some clapped in joy. Some nodded in respect. A few still frowned, but the decision was final. Later that day, the three of them stood on a high platform overlooking the stars. "I really thought someone was going to throw a chair at me," Tom joked. Rena laughed. "If they had, I would have caught it and thrown it back." Luma smiled. "You took a risk. You spoke the truth. That takes more courage than any trial." Tom nodded. "I didn't want to hurt either of you. You both deserve the freedom to choose your own paths." "And so do you," Luma said. Joan's voice came in softly. "You've received a message, Tom. Earth Command has approved your new position." "Already?" he asked. "Yes, they have named you ambassador to the Zoreth Alliance." "Congratulations." Rena raised both hands. "Does that mean you get your own spaceship?" "I think it means I have a lot of boring meetings," Tom replied. "But also adventures," Luma added. Tom looked out at the stars. "Yes, Adventures will face together, different but united. But far across the galaxy, in the dark silence of deep space, a ship moved through shadows. Inside, a tall figure watched a screen showing the announcement from the Zorth Council. Voice behind him said, "The humans have avoided the trap." The figure replied coldly, "For now. But peace is only strong if no one shakes it." Another screen lit up. A list of names. A map of space routes. Images of Earth's colonies. Tom stood on the wide bridge of the Unity Star, the Zorth-built ship newly gifted to Earth's ambassador team. Lights blinked gently on the walls, and soft hums came from the engines. It was sleek, silent, and powerful, capable of traveling across 3 systems in less than a day. Outside the viewing window, the stars looked calm. But Tom knew peace didn't mean quiet. It meant constant effort. Joan's voice spoke softly from his shoulder device. "Ambassador, final reports are ready. Your first official journey begins in 1 hour." Tom smiled at the title. "Still, feels strange hearing that." "You've earned it," Joan said. "Even if you didn't marry royalty." Tom chuckled. "Maybe that's why I'm still alive." But even as he smiled, his thoughts were serious. It had been 2 weeks since the Zorth Council ended the old law. Since the alliance was rewritten, with friendship instead of marriage. Most supported. Yet few still whispered against it. And someone, somewhere, was preparing to test it. Earlier that day, Consul Dyrox had invited Tom for one last private meeting before his departure. Inside the high tower, Dyrox looked older than before, though. His voice remained strong. "You are not just Earth's voice anymore," he said. "You are the bridge between worlds. That path is not easy." Tom nodded. "I know. I've seen what fear and anger can do." Dyrox stepped forward and handed Tom a small cube. "This is a key. It connects to our oldest archives knowledge. We've never shared before. Use it wisely." Tom took the cube with respect. "Thank you." The consul looked at him. "You chose not to marry my granddaughters. Yet you still protected them, respected them, and gave them freedom." "That is rare," Tom replied. "They didn't need a husband. They needed space to grow." "Indeed," Dyrox said. "And now you must grow too, not as a guest but as a leader." Back aboard the Unity Star, Tom reviewed the mission plan. His first task was to visit 3 neutral planets, Vultra, Nominar, and Hesk, each with its own views about Earth joining the Zorth Alliance. Some feared humans, some wanted trade, some prepared for war. Tom's job was to speak for Earth. Fears, share ideas, build trust. He looked at the list of scheduled speeches and talks. "So much for a quiet start. Would you prefer another trial?" Joan teased. "Honestly, a wind maze sounds easier than diplomacy." As the ship prepared for launch, Tom received a message. It was from Luma. He tapped the screen. Her calm face appeared, surrounded by the soft glow of the crystal garden. "Tom, I just wanted to say thank you. You helped me see that tradition is not the same as truth. I've decided to become a peace advisor for young leaders across the galaxy. Maybe I'll visit Earth one day." He smiled. Then another message came, this time from Rena. She appeared upside down in the frame, probably lying on a hoverboard. "Hey, space hero. I joined a starship crew headed for the edge of the unknown. No rules, no council, just stars. And stories. If I find anything strange or shiny, I'll send it your way. And tell Earth your snacks are weird, but I miss them already." Tom laughed. Of course she joined a rogue ship. Joan added, "I'm logging both messages into your personal memory bank." "Good," Tom said softly. "They matter." The ship launched smoothly. As it moved through the black sea of stars, Tom stood on the front deck, watching the planet below grow smaller. Earth wasn't visible, but he felt its weight in his heart, his people. His home. Now he was their voice. He took a breath and pressed the come link. A live signal opened across the Zorth communication network. reaching leaders, civilians, and travelers alike. Tom spoke slowly but clearly. This is Tom of Earth. I speak today not with power or rank, but with purpose. We are different, yes. Different bodies, different skies, different pasts. But we all dream, we all fear, we all hope. I am not a soldier, I am not a king. I'm an engineer who believed that fixing things matters, whether machines or trust. Let our alliance be built, not just on promises, but on progress. Not forced by fear, but chosen with care. To every world listening, Earth is ready to listen, ready to learn, and ready to walk beside you, not behind, not ahead, but beside. He ended the message and let the silence speak for a moment. Jones said, "Early reports show strong reactions. Most are positive, and the rest? There are still shadows. Some voices speak of rebellion, of doubt." Tom nodded. "That means we're doing something real." Hours later, a quiet alert rang across the ship. Unidentified ship approaching. No ID signal, possible stealth tech. Jones' voice sharpened. Reading power surges. It could be hostile. Tom stood and walked to the command panel. Open a channel. The screen showed static, then a face appeared. Rough skin, deep scars, and sharp yellow eyes. "You speak of peace," the figure growled. "But peace is weakness. Earth will fall like the others." Tom didn't flinch. "We didn't come here to rule," he said, "but we're not afraid to stand." The figure sneered. "Let's see how long that courage lasts." The screen cut off. Jones spoke. "They are not attacking yet, possibly testing our response." Tom narrowed his eyes. "Then let's give them the right answer." He activated the Zorith defense shield, just enough to show they were ready, not to destroy, but to protect. The enemy ship turned slowly, then vanished into deep space. Jones said, "They'll be back." Tom looked out the window. "So will we." Later, Tom sat alone in his quarters. He took out the small cube the Consul had given him and placed it in a slot on his table. Soft blue light rose. Images of old Zorith history filled the room. Wars, treaties, hidden truths, warnings, and, among them, a name Tom didn't recognize, the Void Circle. Jones scanned the file. This name appears in old records. A group that believes in pure strength. They reject alliances. Brock may have been one of them. Tom stared at the glowing symbol. A black circle surrounded by broken stars. This is the real danger. He stood slowly. And now I know where to look next. In the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers grew. But so did hope, because one human who came as a guest now stood as a voice, not with weapons, but with truth. And sometimes that was the strongest thing of all.